Okay, guys, this is a quick review of Chapter 7. I encourage you to watch it a couple times. We're going to cover the key points, and this is going to be a great way to just refresh your mind for this chapter, Chapter 7. We first start off in this chapter on page 157, okay, talking about how the 1800s and the 1900s have definitely changed. When we're talking about the 1800s, we were just getting our third president. Mississippi, which is right here, even before the yellow, was the western border. Remember, this all came later. Notice all the dates are later in the 1800s. And the U.S. was not one of the powerful nations. Remember, we had the Spanish war with them, and that's when we started to have that turning point. Now, as we enter the 1900s, we are talking about one major word, and that word is progress. With progress, it has brought free time for not only the rich, but also the ordinary and the everyday people. We have medicines now that are helping in increasing our lifespan. And we also talked about the Wright brothers, which means we have flight, so more inventions. And the United States is known as a wealthy nation, so money, money, money. As we proceed into chapter 7, we talked about some of the problems with progress. And there was business problems, problems with the poor, and with journalists. Okay, first, our business problems. We need to take note that it did help make our nation wealthy, but some did not think they should have all the power. They were afraid they were going to hurt small businesses. They wanted equality. And then workers were striking, and so people were worried about violence. We then have problems with the poor. Remember, they were living in houses known as tenements, and these became as bad places to live. They were worried they might not learn to be good workers and not practice the skills needed for good jobs. They also were worried that there were bad influences in the area. Then we come to our journalists. Journalists sometimes reported on dangerous conditions and dishonesty of the government, and that's good, but they also dove in and they exposed real problems. Nellie Bly was a journalist that actually pretended that he was insane so that it could report on the awful conditions of the insane asylum. But journalists also stretched the truth. We have the muckrakers. They wrote news that focused just on bad news and sin. We continue on. There were problems for farmers. Bigger farms made the farmers lose their jobs. Then they wanted people to return. They wanted the power returned to the ordinary people. They were called the populists. Not powerful enough by themselves, so they joined other Americans to help end the poverty. They wanted to face country's problems, and then they would change were called, and they were then called progressives. Sometimes, though, they made the problems even bigger, and some thought progressives hurt the nation. And as our final part of our review, before we move on, we need to know about these three terms: providence, social scientists, and experts. Providence is the belief that nothing happens apart from God's plan. As we progressed, unfortunately, a lot of people started to sway away from God's word. We started to involve social scientists, people that study societies, and they would say, well, if we do this in the society, it will improve, when what we really need to return to was God's word. Then we brought in those experts. Experts are someone who knows much about a specific part of life, and people would say, well, we need an expert for education, or we need an expert on societies. Hey, I know that was a quick review, but it helped hit the key terms.